Support laneside. Get something cool.
So you can see here, guys, we have 6 spots to fill in my tournament arsenal. And since we get so many questions about the ball motion video that I did and the understanding the beginnings of it with layout and equipment selection, I thought I would take this opportunity to kind of show you how I apply my own advice here to my arsenal. So you can see we've got a couple of balls on the floor here we're going to go take a look at. I'm going to make some choices as to what's going to go where. Okay, so you can see that we've got them put out here, not necessarily by core type, but by cover stock. As we know, cover is anywhere from 60 to 75% of the total ball motion. So we want to make sure that we make our choices based on the reaction that we want to create. So we've got solid on the end, hybrid in the middle, and pearl here. So let's kind of go through and make our choice. The first thing we want to do is we want to choose our benchmark ball. So with our benchmark ball, as we said, we want something that's medium differential. We don't want this thing to be super high flaring. We don't want it to be, hanging a left as soon as it hits the ground. So for that, I think there's nothing better than to drill ourselves a brand new Brunswick Phantom. Now, you can see here I do have a Verge, and while I do like the Verge, you can see the layout we put on it here is a 3-inch pin to pap at 40 degrees. It is still a pretty big core in it, so we see a lot of flare from it. So I'd rather hold that for my heavy control ball rather than my benchmark ball. So and you can see here we've got some bigger choices here, but I think in that solid benchmark reaction we're gonna go with the Phantom. So let's add that to our 6 balls over there, and we'll come back and we're gonna go from there. So now we're gonna look at our heavy control ball. Now we have a couple of choices here, and this is really where it's gonna come down to the pattern that you're gonna be bowling on and knowing your game. You can see here we have this guy right here. This is the Prism Solid, and this is a 90 by 3 by 40 layout. So this ball is going to go pretty long and be pretty smooth for me as a low tilt bowler. Now, one thing we talk about is slow response layouts. For some people, based on their pap, based on their personal bowling characteristics, this pin might be under here as their slower response ball. For my statistics, a slow response ball, this is my pin down. My pin down is beside my ring finger. So this is why when you throw different people's equipment, you should always have it tailored to you and not expect yours to do what theirs does, simply because our bowling statistics are unique. So this is slow response. So if we had a lot of hook down lane, we were expecting it to hook a lot, this would be my choice as my heavy control ball. However, say I have to create a little bit more motion down lane, as we talked about the Verge before. So you can see this is my pin down. It's a little bit closer to my pap here, so this one's going to roll a little bit sooner. But being asymmetric with this pin position, it's going to retain a little bit more axis rotation for me. It's going to smooth out, but it's going to be digging in, so I can put a lot of surface on that. Or my favorite, my Conspiracy Solid. I have actually gone with this one with a much stronger pin position. So if I really need this to read down lane, if I need a lot of motion down lane, because we know that layouts create our motion down lane and our surfaces create our traction up lane. If I know I need to get the ball to hook, this is going to be my darling. Much, much stronger. So for now, though, being a rev dominant player who is looking for a control ball, I think we're going to go with the Deviate Verge as our heavy control. Alright, and we're going to finish off the control section. Now you can see we don't have a lot of other choices here, and I kind of left this one as it is here. We've got our counterattack here, our counterattack solid. Once again, I mean, our CG doesn't matter. This is symmetric, so we know. Very similar layout to what we saw in our Verge. So we can let the surface work on this ball. Low differential, so I can control how much flare I've got, control how it's going to read the lanes. So let's go add this. This is our final part of our control package. Alright, so we're back here at the counter, and you can see we've got them set up. Now, as I said, surface is very important. So when we're looking at our Verge here, our Verge is going to be taken to, I'm going to say probably 500, and then skip sanded with either 3,000 or 4,000. I really want this thing to dig in, but I do need a little bit of length because of my low tilt. I don't want it to read right at the bottom of the lane, or the bottom of my shot. I want it to have a little bit of projection before it starts to dig in. But this ball's job is not to hook a lot. This ball's job is to get into a roll and get to the pocket. It's for when they're really cliffed, they're hard to score on, they're over-under, and I just want a ball that I can control to get to the pocket and deal with what's left. So this is my heavy control ball. Phantom, we talked about this low differential. Now all these will end up having, for me, the same layout on them. And I will let the surface and the ball's characteristics do what they're supposed to do. So this guy, we said we're going to go 500 and either 3,000 or 4,000 skip sanded. This guy we're going to hit at 2,000. Comes into the box at, I believe, 1,000. And I just want to speed up the reaction a little bit. I don't want it to look like urethane. I want it to have a little bit of hook, but I don't want it to hook a lot. Like we said, this is our middle of our bag to know if we got to go up or down in reaction. And then the counterattack, this guy, you can see the surface is already pretty high on it. I'm going to take this guy probably to... Probably going to take this guy to 2,000, 4,000. Now this is where, if you had only 6 balls to take with you, this is where your spare ball would go. Because I have another spare ball and I can really flatten out anything, I'm using this spot specifically for a much weaker ball. On house patterns, that means I can go play right with my high rev rate and not worry about it, and at tournaments it's got something to control. So let's go and take a look at our angular side. Okay, so for our angular side, we are over here with our hybrids and our pearls. Now, please remember, just because a ball is a hybrid, it doesn't mean it can't be angular. It's going to be smoother than a traditional pearl, but it does not by any means mean it can't be angular. It's just the same way as that conspiracy there, the conspiracy theory with the TP1 cover on it, is a little smoother than a traditional pearl because of the those little textured pearl-like materials on it. It really kind of allows it to slow down differently. So let's take a look here. Let's go to the middle of the bag, just like we did with the benchmark ball. We're going to look for our benchmark middle of the bag in angular. And for me, this really comes down to what I'm going to be throwing on. For house pattern, probably going to go with this Squatch here, the new Squatch hybrid. Even though it is a little bit of a stronger cover than the pearl version, I mean, this has almost the same total hook as the solid. The surface preparation and layout we've chosen on it gets it down lane pretty good. And when we compared it to my original Squatch, which was in this position at 2,000, they looked pretty close. So I think if we're going to go for a house pattern, we're going to go with this guy. Now for tournaments, as we said with the other one, it's going to depend on the pattern we're on. If I am looking at something like a very flat pattern, I might actually lean a little more towards the Glam or the Prowler to put an asymmetric in. Being low tilt, I don't throw a lot of asymmetrics unless they're in a symmetric layout, which just happens to be, if you see this nice high pin position with that mass bias above the thumb, that's what that happens to be. So we've taken an asymmetric ball and made it symmetric. It's a little more mid-laney and a little more roll forward than the Night Prowler, the one after it. And for a middle of the bag, I kind of like that for tournaments. So really I got choices there. But since we're gonna do this for the house shot, that's the Arsenal I'm replacing here, why don't we put the Squatch up there? So now we're looking at the top of the bag, the most angular, well, the strongest angular ball by reaction and surface. Now I have a couple of choices here, a couple of really good choices. I am replacing a Prism Hybrid, which I loved, but I no longer have, unfortunately. So the closest to that I've had is the Vapor Zone Hybrid with a surface change, or the Zing Hybrid. And I think we're actually going to go with the Zing Hybrid. I found, even though it's not exactly like the Prism, it's pretty close. The Vapor Zone, I think, is within a board of total hook of it, but it's just a little bit slower response. That is something that I could almost change the surface and put that into that category, that benchmark, because it's more of an all-purpose ball. But I find it a bit strong for that. So I think our choice here has got to be the Zing. So let's add that up on the counter. So here we are for the last of the 6 balls, and we actually have a lot of choices. Right away you can see we've got the Cherry Rack Attack from Radical. That is an awesome choice symmetrical-wise. But for myself, this is actually one of those places I like an asymmetric ball. When the lanes are really hooking and I need to get the ball to face up but roll forward, I have been throwing my Vintage Vapor Zone. So I'm thinking what I might actually do here is I think I'm going to take my Vintage Vapor Zone here and take it up to the same surface as my original Vapor Zone, which was 2,000, 4,000 polish. And we're going to try that in that spot because, as I said, I like it to be a little fast down lane with the weaker ball, but the Vintage Vapor Zone was really fast. And this is going to give me a little bit more control, so when they get really dry and I need to get that ball out there, it'll still read, but maybe won't bounce just quite as quickly. Oh, but you know, I do have that frequency. That frequency is pretty fast, and I bet you that would look real. You know what? That's what we're going to do. We're going to go with that frequency there. Frequency is a pretty big core. I would like to go to a higher RG ball to get some more distance out of it. Unfortunately, I don't have anything through the 3 Brunswick brands right now that I can go to. Usually I would love to go to like a 2.5, like a 2.52, 2.54, and then use the surface on that to project it down lane. But we don't really have anything like that other than the counterattack, which we've already talked about, which I may still be the best choice. But however, that Vintage Vapor Zone and that frequency, you know what, I think we're going to take that frequency and we're going to take the surface up on it. At least give it a try and see what it looks like. So let's take this thing up and add it to our 6 ball. So now you can see we've got all 6 chosen here. As I said, this one here, I may not even do a surface change on this. This thing is insanely strong. For myself as a low tilt player, this thing is just silly strong. And I could probably take it to 500 plus polish, but you know, I want to test it where it is. I like this ball. This guy here, as we said, we're going to do a surface change on it. We're going to take it to 2,000 plus polish, though I might try 2,000 plus compound first. Like we said, it's a tiny bit slower than the Pearl, but it has more total hook, so we want to play with this surface to dial it in. And this is one of the things we said in that ball motion video, is once you get your balls picked out, you have to dial in those surfaces based on your game. And then we got the frequency here. I think taking this guy, even though it's a hybrid, it is a faster cover than the Vapor Zone hybrid that we had there. I think this is going to be closer to my vintage Vapor Zone. So 2,000, 4,000 polish, I think, is going to make this look really good late. Alright, and as we said, if we were going to do something, the counterattack would be replaced with a spare ball. So I think that's it. I think we're looking at our new arsenal here. Time to throw some switch grips in. We just finished the videos, and unfortunately I've got a little bit of a wrist injury, so we couldn't switch grip them the same way. We had to drill to accommodate my hand a little bit. Luckily the other guys are awesome professionals and are able to deal with my shortcomings. But yeah, I think it's time to do some surfaces and put some switch grips in. I think we've just got this one to switch grip, we've got this one to fully drill, do some surface changes, and then yeah, it's time to go back out and hit the lanes. Let's go.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a show. So until next time, guys, we'll see you laneside.